Amaku aloha mahalo. E hop mai kai. Ke hale ame ke po imanu. Mama. Blessings to this place and all these people gathered here. Hi, my name is Serge Kahili King. I represent Aloha International, and we are an organization that is doing our best to spread the Aloha spirit worldwide. And part of what we do is have these talks on the first Sunday of every month. And now the event that you've been waiting for, from our artist of the spirit, who is a specialist in string figures and creative art, Lois Stokes, please.
I want you to journey with me today to a place of sacred time, inspired by the Kumulipo, the Hawaiian creation song. Take a deep breath. Inhale with the focus of the crown of your head. Exhale with the focus of your navel. Out of the darkness, out of the night world, out of the darkness of night, out of chaos, out of obscurity, out of the inner world of light, out of the spiritual country of God, out of the celestial realm of the heavens, out of the kingdom of the gods, out of the higher realm of the spirit world, out of the spirit realm of the celestial world, where the seers receive their divine revelations, comes the realm of inspiration to which a highly developed spiritual consciousness extends itself during sleep and is enlightened with the wisdom in the form of dreams. Comes out of the darkness of darkness, out of the cold and mists of the night, out of the first great breath of life, out of the eternal life of the sun, the first life dawned in the cosmic night world of Po. Po being the time of darkness, the time of night, the time of creation. Ao being the time of light. A Hawaiian string figure called Hoku speaks of, at night, the stars are about us. At dawn, we are gone. As we travel in time, sacred time. E poe, kau mai ka hoku. A au a ela helele vale I hono. A au a ela helele vale I hono. E poe, kau mai ka hoku.
Thank you. I want to mention the last figure that she did, that was a star twinkling in the night. Okay? Yes. All right. Now we begin with a legend. Ikawakahiko, Mamualoa o Kapena Kuke. Once upon a time, long before Captain Cook. They lived in these islands, especially that we're talking about Maui today. They lived on the island of Maui, a kukini. That's a trained runner. His name was Eleio, but you got to understand a little bit what a trained runner in Hawaiian culture means. One of the things in the old days, any chief with any power at all would have one or more of these runners in his service. Now, of course, one of the roles that they played was to send messages to different places of the island. There used to be on every island what they called, in later days, they called it the King's Highways. They were actually footpaths. And typically on an island or wherever it was feasible, there would be one that was close to the sea, and you can still see the remains of one today on Big Island at Mackenzie Park. And there would be one that was higher up in the mountains, okay, on the slopes. And the runners would make these trails. They wouldn't always use the trails, however, because tradition says, legends say, the runners had to be very, very fast. They not only carried messages. Sometimes they went on errands for the chief. And of course the high chief would have the best runners. And they were very, very privileged position in the society. They had all kinds of perks, and this is why when they had the annual Makahiki Games, why foot racing was such an important part. So it wasn't just to see who could be the fast runner, but there were scouts watching to see who might make a good kukini, who might make a good trained runner to be able to work for a chief. And so it's a very important part of the society. Well, this was one of the best runners of all. And so one day, the high chief, because this was the high chief, his base was in Lahaina, which is in the far western side of Maui. And he got up one morning and said to Eleo, I want some ava, and have it here. I want some ava from Huna, and have it here by dinner time. Well, that didn't even faze the runner, but it would faze anybody else, because today by road, going from Lahaina to Hana, which is on the far eastern end of Maui, it's 72 miles. And if you go in a straight line, it's 48. But if you go in a straight line, you're going to have to cross not only the West Maui Mountains, but the 10,000-foot Haleakala. Well, the legends that surround the runners are that they would always go in as straight a line as possible. And they would leap over streams, and they would climb over rocks, and they would, climb up the mountains and down the mountains and jump over anything in their way and just head straight for where they were going. And the idea that a runner could, there's lots of legends about this, that a runner could leave one place and go to a far distant place and come back in the same day. There are just lots of legends on all the islands about that. There was one on Big Island, as a matter of fact, where it was on the Kona side, and he had to go over to Hilo and get a fish and bring it back in time for the imu, which was getting ready to cook it. Okay? So anyway, this was Eleo. So off he goes. On this particular route, now Maui is kind of a funny shaped island. It's got one ancient volcano over here. The old Hawaiian name of that is Mauna Kahalawai. It's got a Haleakala, the big volcano over on this side, and it's got a valley in between. That's why they often call it the Valley Island. So he headed down from Lahaina, down around the slope, till he came to a particular kind of a gorge. And this gorge, well known. In fact, I've got it in my notes, but I'm not going to pick it up right now to find it. But it's something or other. And it's a very steep cliff. And it's just past Oluwalu, if anybody knows their island well enough for that. So he goes past and he goes into this gorge, and there's this very steep cliff. So he climbs up that cliff with no problem at all, and he's starting to run over the mountains, and suddenly, out of the corner of his eye, he sees somebody also up there. There's not supposed to be anybody else up there. Hawaiians, as a rule, did not live inland. Okay? They lived on the coast. So he's up there already in the mountains, and he turns and looks, and it's a beautiful young woman. Well, this is going to make the trip easier. So he heads off to kind of overtake her, because he sees her running. But strangely enough, she keeps running, and she's always ahead of him. And he is fast. And so he increases his speed, and she stays ahead of him. And he runs, and he puts all of his effort into it, and over the mountain, and down through the valley, and down across. You're looking at the thing, so he's going over the valley and down around the southern slope of Haleakala, and finally just passes a place called Kaupo, which is the end of a gorge that comes down from Haleakala, and there's a point past that, and then he catches her right at that point. And she says, let me go, and he's holding on to her. And she says, I'm not human, I'm a spirit. He says, I know that. Otherwise I would have caught up with you. No human can run as fast as me. So I knew you had to be a spirit. But he was able to grab her. And she said, "Let me go, this is my dwelling." Now the dwelling she talked about was a pyramidal kind of a structure, a covered structure. It's called in Hawaiian a pu'o'a. And in some areas, for the aristocracy in particular, there'd be a platform inside, and that's where somebody who had recently died would, as we would put it today, lie in state for several days. Okay? The higher the rank, the longer they would lie in state on that. So she was of the aristocracy. And so he looked in and there was her body. Then he came back out, but she was gone. And he looked around, and he saw a flicker and grabbed her again. And she tried to struggle to go, and she said, "Look," she said, "my name is Kanikani Aula. And over there," she points, "is the house of my parents." And she said, "If you go over there and you tell them my name, and you ask for my most precious possession, which they have, they will give it to you. And I give you that as a gift if you let me go." Well, okay. I mean, what are you going to do with a spirit anyway? So he lets her go. She disappears. He goes over to the family and tells the girl's name and describes her, because the spirit looked exactly the same, and talks about this precious item that she has. And so they are very impressed that he knows her. He even knew her name. And so they went and got the item and gave it to him, and he was just totally stunned. He had never seen anything like it, never dreamed of anything like it. It was the very first feather cloak ever made. Now a feather cloak, some of you know this, was, of course, it was so precious, it was only worn by chiefs, and the longer the cloak, the higher the rank. But it was feathers, thousands and thousands of feathers taken from the forest, from a couple birds in particular, but this one was all iiwi. This was from a bird that was all red, and it was a red feather cloak, and the feathers are attached to a netting made of a very, very tough fiber called olana. And so it was just startlingly beautiful. So wow, okay, he's very pressed. But then he's figuring, the girl is this smart, and she's so beautiful. What's she doing dead? Now, almost nobody knew this, but Eleio was not only a master kukini, a master runner, he was also a kahuna pule. But it's not something that he spread around. So he was not a formal priest who worked in the temple, but he knew how to do a lot of priestly type magic. And there's an ancient ritual called kukala, which is bringing someone back from the dead. And so he asked the family, he said, "I would like to try this, but I'll need your help." Well, they loved their daughter so much, they agreed to help him. So they went, he said, first of all, we have to have a big feast. The feast was to honor Eleio's gods, and so he could ask them for their help. That's why they did it in the old days. So they had this great big feast of all kinds of stuff. Now, Eleio knew that the spirit of Kanikani Aula would come to be at the feast, and so he waited until he could see her out of the corner of his eye and then grabbed her again. And then he took the whole family up to the pu'o'a, where the corpse was. And he went inside, and the corpse is laying there, and he's got the spirit in his hands, and he starts chanting the special prayer required for this ritual. And he starts pushing the spirit into both insteps of the girl who's lying on the platform. This is the way it was done. So he's pushing and pushing, and at first the spirit goes in willingly, then he keeps pushing and keeps pushing, gets her up to the knees, and the spirit wouldn't go any further. So he increases the intensity of his chanting. Finally he's able to get it past the knees up to the stomach. Can't get it past the stomach, so he calls on the family. They need to add their prayers to his. So they all are praying feverishly, and finally the spirit passes the stomach and gets up to the neck, and it won't go any further. And he calls on all the relatives who had come for the feast. He says, and add their prayers to the ritual. And they all added their prayers, and everybody's praying just as hard as they can. And then finally the spirit goes into the head, and the girl opens her eyes and smiles, and she's alive. Wow, that's so wonderful. And she comes out, and she has to go through some purification ceremony. She did that with the local priest. And then when that was all over, well, they had a big feast for her. And the father and mother, the parents, came to Elihu and said, look, what you've done is so wonderful. We would like you to take Kanikani Aula as your bride, take the cloak, and become our son. Well, the problem there was that Elihu was a retainer of the high chief. And practical reasons, it would have been dangerous, but that wasn't why he said no. He said no out of loyalty to his chief and out of integrity, because that would be a wrong thing to do when he was only someone who brought things to the chief, and he did not have that kind of rank. So he said, thank you, no, but I will bring her and the cloak and some ava back to the high chief. And he says, oh, okay, they finally all agreed, so off he goes. However, this time, naturally, it took an awful lot longer because Kanikani Aula is in human form. And she can't run anything like Elihu could. So on they go, and it takes several days before they're back around, actually, sorry, your direction, back around this way, okay, and finally reach Lahaina. Now, as soon as they get to Lahaina, the guards saw him. The guards had a standing order from the high chief, if that man shows his face here again, I want him burned alive. So they grabbed him and they started pulling him toward a pit. And he said, wait, he says, I have something for the chief, and if you don't let me give it to him, he will never forgive you. Well, the guards had always liked and trusted Elihu, so it's not just like he had this magic power of persuasion, he had a friendships there. So they agreed to bring him to the high chief first. So he comes to the high chief is first upset to see this man alive, and then Elihu presents the girl, and wow, chief's eyes open. This is a beauty, and she's an ali'i, which means a part of the aristocracy. So he's really impressed, and he forgives Elihu for not being back on time. Elihu presents the ava, and the chief just tosses that aside. Then he presents the cloak. And then the guest king is just out of his, I said king, it's a habit from modern Western terminology. Then the high chief said, okay, besides I identified with the guy. So he says, okay, and he then raises Elihu into a higher rank with greater privileges, and he wears the cloak with pride, and marries Kanikani Aula, and of course they live happily ever after, and so does the cloak. Because what happened with the cloak, Kanikani Aula taught others how to make it, but that particular cloak, okay, is said to be the very one that is named after that high chief, and it's in the Bishop Museum today. Okay? Pipi holoke ka'au, so goes the story. Now from that story, we're going to segue into the topic for today. The topic for today is how to have the time to do what you want to do. And I may refer to my notes a little bit on this one, but we have to start off with getting an understanding of time, because there's so much false information and so many ideas about it that are not useful at all. Okay, so let's be clear about what time is. Time is a measurement of the movement of the earth. That's it. That's what time is. It's not a thing. It's not another dimension, although quantum physicists pretend it is for their mathematics. But it's only a measurement of the movement of the earth. And there are two ways in which we use that in practical terms. Now, in one of the ways, this represents the earth. This, of course, being white, is the North Pole. Okay? Now, the earth goes, it's kind of tilted. Okay? It's It's not straight up. So the Earth is tilted. I know you know this from high school science, but let me do it anyway. And it has one movement, which is rotation. It rotates, one complete rotation is what we call a day. The day, the complete rotation is a natural event. But then a long time ago, somebody divided up that day into 24 segments that we call hours. And the thing that's important to know about that is that's made up. Okay? So these hours don't really exist except insofar as we use them. But that's one way in which we use it. The Earth also has another movement. It goes around the sun in an almost perfect circle. One orbit of the sun is what we call 1 year. And because the Earth is tilted, during that year there are seasonal changes in different parts of the world. But the beginning and end of the year, especially the beginning, is made up. Okay, it's not related to anything. The orbit is an actual event. But the year, when it starts, is totally made up. The other thing that's made up is the specific dates for the seasons. If you pay attention, nature doesn't care whether it's supposed to be spring or summer, winter or fall. Okay? It's going to do what it wants to do when she wants to do it. Okay? So you got to understand those particular dates for the seasons, that's made up. But this is the kind of time we use. Now you all know, of course, even made up time can be very useful. That's what helped to get you here for this meeting on this particular day. Even though the times are made up, it helps us do things in a kind of an organized way. Problem is, it also gets in our way because of some of the ideas we have about it. I want to mention some of those things here. Let's get down here. Okay. First of all, as I said before, time is not a thing. Okay? You can't lose it, and you can't save it. It's only a measure of the Earth moving. The Earth is going to move whether you like it or not. Okay? There's nothing to save and nothing to lose. Okay? That's one of the most important things. The other thing is time can be used for setting the beginning and the end of an activity, but time does not cause the activity. That's another important kind of thing. Time doesn't do anything. Okay? It's only a measure, and that's all it is. Okay? It has no substance except as a measure. It's something like yards and meters. Okay? We made those up as human beings. They're very useful. There are borders between countries. People make those up. Sometimes they're useful, sometimes they're not. But you go looking for it, you're not going to see anything on the ground. Okay? And in different times and different places, there are all kinds of different measurements for distance and different measurements for space, and actually lots of different measurements for time too, come to think of it. Okay? Because the Hawaiians didn't use hours, okay? Or seasons. Well, two, sort of. Okay? But they timed those seasons by the actual events. Okay? So that was different. Here's an interesting thing about time, though. Time can be reserved. And this is where it gets very useful. Just like we would reserve a place for dinner at the Kilauea Lodge, okay? We can reserve time for, to put it accurately, a movement of the Earth that hasn't happened yet. Okay? Because remember, that's what time is measuring. So we can reserve time, and that can be very useful. Right? But if we don't make it, we haven't lost anything. Okay? We just haven't used our reservation. Now, it's the rules we make about time that can help us or hinder us. And there's some that really do hinder us. One of the most serious rules is you'd better be on time or else. What this means is to be at a particular place at a particular measurement. Governments, businesses, schools, they do this, and they also have the authority to enforce it. So this is the kind of rule that you break at your own risk. But don't forget, it's just a rule, okay? And potentially changeable. Okay? Now, of lesser importance are the ones that say you should be on time. So, these are dinner parties, maybe, gatherings, places where it doesn't hurt to be a little early, a little late, fine, a lot of leeway there. Unless you're using it for yourself. If you think that you should be on time and you feel guilty when you're not, you're creating a lot of unnecessary stress. Okay? You're either on time or you're not on time. That's it. Okay? But if you feel bad about it, you're making up something about something that's made up. You stop to think about that for a little while. You might ease off on that. Now, here's another one, a couple others. Okay, everyone should be on time. That goes along with what we said. There's never enough time. Time just goes too fast. I have to make up for lost time. These kinds of things. All of it, which is nonsense. And yet can cause you an awful lot of stress if you have those kinds of rules. Okay? But since time is only a measurement and the earth is moving, you're making up rules about something that doesn't have the ability to qualify for the rule. Well, interesting way to put it. All right. Now here's some things that'll help you make better use of the movement of the earth. All right? So one of them is make time. Hear that? Boy, oh boy, these habits get into you so much, these phrases that we use. You can't make time. Right? That's like, okay, I'm going to make a yard. You can't do that. You can reserve time. And that's the word that would have been better here. But you can make up a rule. Okay? But to reserve time to breathe deep, to reserve time to relax your body, to calm your mind. And you don't have to do fancy things to do that. You don't have to do a special meditation. You don't have to do or learn some involved technique. Take a few deep breaths. We're surrounded by nature. Listen to it. Watch it. You can watch the leaves move. If you have enough time reserved, you can watch the flowers grow. Okay? But you can look at the beauty of them. You can see the waves moving. Here's the thing people don't realize. It doesn't take a lot of earth movement for that to have a good effect on you. If you would take 1 minute breaks frequently throughout the day, you'd be amazed at how you can de-stress so much and end the day feeling an awful lot better. And because of this, many studies have shown that people who are relaxed, not stressed, get more done in a given segment of earth movement. Okay? That's been shown over and over again. Tightening up, pushing yourself, having to do it, slows you down. If you can go at what is important to do, and you can relax first, during, and after, and again, just these mini moments, then you're going to get more done in the same time period. Another thing that really helps is decide what's really important and focus on that first. Get it out of the way if you have a life which is set up like that. You'll find that you'll get stuff done faster than you thought you might have and have more time to do other things that you want. For instance, I have 3 things that I focus on first thing every morning. Do what my wife wants. Not going to fight that one. That one works. Okay? And the second one is help people, because in what I do, there are always occasions and opportunities for that to come up. And the third thing is take care of the money. And once I've done those 3 things, then I have all this other time to get more creative and do other things that please me, okay? And help more people. Doesn't matter what you choose. You may choose 1, 2, 3, but pick the things that are most important and then focus on them first. Another thing that's very important is reduce. This is very important. You want to reduce the amount of earth movement you use for procrastination. Wow. Okay? While you're not doing something, the earth is moving. While you're trying to avoid it, the earth is moving. Okay? So, there's an old kind of a thing. It's really hard unless it's, when it's something you have to face doing something that's not pleasurable. That's when it makes it really tough. But if you can get yourself to lower the resistance, do it anyway, get it over and done with, you're going to find more time periods opening up for you. Okay? A time period is a certain segment of earth movement. Okay? We got that one down. There's a familiar saying, do what you love and love what you do. It's easy to do what you love. But there are times when there's other things to do. How can you love what you do? Well, I'm going to tell you, you can. It's only a decision. You can decide not to love it, or you can decide to love it. Or in between, you can decide to tolerate it. That's on the way. Okay? Because that's one of the meanings of aloha too, Okay? So, you can love it that way if you can. Some of the things you do, relax first so that it doesn't seem so stressful. And if you can, sometimes it works to make a game out of it. I used to do that a lot when I was a kid and I had to do chores. Okay, I just made the chores into a game and used my imagination, and I was having wonderful time. It was over too fast sometimes. Okay? But that's how I got through chores. Sometimes increasing your skill and your self-confidence in certain areas that are important to you, that have to do with your daily life, going out of your way to increase your skill and increase your self-confidence, that can make you do these things so much faster and better and have more earth movement left to do other things that you want to do. So increasing skill. One of the simple things, it's very simple today, very common with people, increase your skill at using an iPad or a computer. Wow, if you just take, go out and learn some more about it and how to do certain tasks and get some help, and there's lots of help available, you find that you can whiz through stuff that you used to, I don't know how to do this and all that kind of stuff, which slows you down tremendously. Okay? There's so much help available. I just recently had a problem on my computer and I couldn't figure out any way to take care of it. So I went to the Apple support site, and they wanted $20 an hour to help me. And then they said, you might try the Apple community. Well, I haven't really done that before. Turns out the Apple community has got, thousands of people out there just waiting for your questions and wanting to help you. Not only do they love to do it, they get special points for doing it if they do help you. So I went on there and put my question in, nothing happened, I shut the computer. Next time I opened up the computer, first message was somebody from the Apple community. I had 3 people help me, and 2 of them helped me. It was really helpful, and the one solved the problem. And it came a lot faster than a day, but it was there, the help was available. There's so much help available, so much information available that can help you do things. If you want to know how to do almost anything, that kind of information is available. YouTube is one of the greatest teaching tools ever. Even if you want to learn Hawaiian, that's a great place to go. And all kinds of other stuff. I learned how to repair watches on there. Okay, it saves me $20 a watch. Okay? So anyway, these are kinds of things that, and saves me earth movement too, okay, because I don't have to go down to the mall. Here's something that I want to help you understand. The idea is to reduce your dependence on people, on events, and on things to make you feel good. Okay? This doesn't mean give them up. Reduce your dependence on them. Reason for that is events do their own thing. Things are what they are. People will do what they do and be what they are. Okay? And sometimes people aren't doing what they do and being what they are when you want them to. And if that makes you unhappy, or you hold everything waiting for them to come around and do what you want, you've wasted a lot of earth movement. Okay? You can be friends, you can work with them, you can do what has to be done, you can work with events and things, but don't make them and their behavior the cause for your happiness or your well-being. Okay? That can save you an awful lot of earth movement. So when we get to the finish, I'm going to finish with a quote. It's a real quote. It's not a Facebook quote. This is a quote from Albert Einstein. Okay? The only reason for time is so that everything doesn't happen at once. Something to think about. Pau ka'olelo. The tale is told. Do we have any questions or comments? Yes.
I always taught my daughter, she started going down to college, I always taught her that, no matter where you left, you get there on time.
Yes.
And I would say that she could just sort of stretch time a little bit.
This is a real experience. That's right. What we're stretching, we don't really know. We call it stretching time. What we're doing is slowing down earth movement. Now, and I think it's possible individually for us to have an effect. We are either slowing down the movement from our perspective, or we are slowing ourselves down, in which you're going to get the same effect. Okay? And so probably in practical terms, we're probably slowing ourselves down.
Well, it makes you calmer when you're driving.
Oh, sure, that's right. And slowing down the frequency of the car, and one great rule to make up is, I have all the time in the world. And the beauty of it is not only true, it really makes you feel good. Helps you take a deep breath and slow down. Yes?
Well, we had an experience. We were doing a seminar in Virginia Beach, and we got called to do a ghost busting thing out of town. And how far was it? 18 miles, and it took us about how long to get it? About 40 minutes to get there. And that was an interesting story. We'll skip that. But on our way back, all of a sudden we're home. We're back at the hotel. 20 minutes.
Aha.
So was that time or just...
Okay. This is good for a whole nother talk.
Oh, okay.
But reality is flexible. It isn't the fixed thing outside of us that most of us have been taught. Okay? Reality is very, very flexible, and it's highly responsive to our state of mind, our state of feelings, our state of body. Okay? So these kinds of things that seem very strange do happen. And it's because reality isn't this fixed external thing. Okay? We're connected to it in all kinds of ways. Okay. Yes?
I wanted to say something about the concept of time management, because people talk about time management, over decades. And the concept that we can't manage time, we can only manage ourselves within the time that we have.
That's right.
And what we give our attention to is what's important to us. Our time or our attention could be equated to with what we love. So the key for me is knowing what I want, and then being able to manage myself within that time and prioritize it. And as you say, tell myself there's always tomorrow, even
Yes.
if there isn't.
Sure.
There's always tomorrow.
Yeah, well, it's one of the things we can almost practically pretty near count on. Okay? Yes?
This doesn't exactly take care of it, but it helps in the meantime, because I was always rushing to the next appointment. And then I'd be leaving the house 10 minutes, quote unquote, too late. And, oh my gosh, and then I go, oh, I'm late. And I go, no, I'm not even late yet. So I would wait until the time I was supposed to be there before I was late. So I got 20 minutes, I'm not late, I'm not late.
Oh, whatever makes you feel good. That's a
So
creative,
I was only late by 10 minutes.
yeah, that's a very creative way to do it. Yes, right. Yes.
Back to her shifting reality. I'm not sure if it's shifting reality. I'd like to hear your input on it. What about when it's supposedly an allotted amount of time to do something, and it's other people that are involved in this shift also? Case in point, we were on an island. We needed to catch a ferry. We looked at the clock. The clock said, we have 15 minutes. The ferry's going to leave in 15 minutes. That's the ferry's schedule. That's the way it is. We had 15 minutes. We were 30 minutes away from the ferry. But when we got there, the clock there said...
That's right. That's right. See, here's the problem. The problem has to do with this made-up time. Yes. Well, in this sense, you think of the distance in terms of the time. Mm-hmm. And that's not accurate. Okay? Because that puts you at a disadvantage. You're working with this made-up system, okay? What's really there is the distance. And even that is a made-up number. So what's really there is, to really bring it down to the basics, you're here and they're there, okay? And somehow you want to get there. That's where you put all your focus.
That's kind of what we did.
Yes, exactly.
I'm not quite
exactly.
sure how we did it.
Right. You don't know how. Let me give you a little knowledge that all of you have and don't pay attention to. You don't know how you talk. Okay? You stop to think about it. And you really don't know how you walk. You put your focus on something you want to say or someplace you want to walk to, and your body does it. In other cases, you put your focus on something and your spirit does it. We don't have to, and sometimes are not able to consciously know all the wonderful things that we do and that others can do and that happen in nature. Okay? Best thing we can do is sit back and admire them while we say, I have all the time in the world. Okay? Good. I'm going to... There's two things here. First of all, this is a free meeting. I want you to be comfortable with that. As an organization, we have some things that we do that might or might not be of interest to you. One of the things we do is we have a booklet, and you can find it back there, a pink one and a blue one. And these have two extremely useful techniques, healing techniques. We give them away free to individuals all around the world. We have them in around 30-some languages for free download on the internet. And so this is one of the things we do. Another thing we do, we have more than 300 articles, and adding more every 2 months, that we have on our website for free access that talk about all different kinds of aspects of this knowledge that we're sharing. A traditional Hawaiian knowledge through the family that adopted me, and other aspects of the culture, as well as healing, many kinds of healing things that are possible to do. So we have all this kind of stuff available, and we have free distant healing for anyone who feels that they would like to make use of that. Contact our email, and somebody will have a whole team of people working for you through the inner worlds, or praying for you. It's basically the same thing. So if any of that interests you, I'm passing a calabash. You can give a donation if you like. Also, when we finish, we are going to, we think of these as living beings who've been shared by all kinds of people from all around the world, a lot of rocks and other things. And we use them in a healing that one of our staff will do when we finish this kind of thing. So pick one out. You do not have to sit and meditate on which one is right for you. Let the object pick you. Just reach in and grab it and it'll be the right one, really. Okay, so pass that on. We can have questions or announcements. Yes? Okay.
So whether you call it time or the movement of the earth, every creature has a certain lifetime, a time on earth.
It appears that way. Some have more, some have less, yes.
And in Buddhism, there's a saying on the Huna, life is swiftly passing. Beware the great matter. Don't waste time.
I know, people say so many of those silly things. Life isn't passing any more swiftly than it always has. Because the earth hasn't changed. Well, it may have changed around 38,000 years ago, but for the most part, it hasn't. And it's doing the same thing for everybody, for every creature, for everything. It's moving at the same pace. Okay? So life doesn't move faster. If we speed up our thinking, speed up our feelings, speed up our metabolism, it seems to move faster. Okay? Like we look around at a little creature called a mayfly, and it has a day or two of life. And we think, oh my goodness, okay? So terrible. But not from the mayfly's point of view. And while we're looking at the mayfly and feeling sorry for it, the mountains are looking at us. If they notice it at all, and they're just doing the same earth movement with a totally different perspective. Okay. So, yeah, those be careful of those sayings about time. They can really get in your way. If you remember its earth movement.
Coming back to then, how do you valuable?
Okay. How do you make the most valuable movement of that movement? Most valuable time of your life, okay? The most valuable thing is to enjoy life to the utmost. One of the great spiritual challenges that we've taken on as a organization is to turn this into the party planet. Now it's going to take a lot of lives and a lot of earth movements to bring that one about. But we are designed for joy. Doesn't matter what you think, who or what designed us, or whether. Our whole being vibrates best to joy and happiness. We get more done, we make more connections, we learn more, we have a better time, okay? You have to use that expression, okay? So, the most valuable thing to do is with the spirit of aloha. The way we define it is to love, is to be happy with. That's the passive. To be happy with someone or something. And the active side is to help someone else or something else be happy. And I think that's the most valuable thing you can do with your life. However you do it. Okay. All right, we have the things there? Yes. Okay. Do I have a volunteer, Stuart? Stuart's going to lead us in a healing blessing.
Aloha, everyone. Everybody have peace? Lovely. So I invite you to put this piece of nature in the palm of your hand. And just notice it there. And what's it doing? I don't know about yours, but mine is just sitting there. So I wanted to do a little, or make this a little time of healing, or a little healing of time, and to invite you to see what you can learn from this piece of nature that is just sitting there. It's not trying to do anything. It's not trying to accomplish anything. It has no regrets that I can see. It's not worried about tomorrow. It's not worried at all, so far as I can see. It's just sitting there. Is it happy? Seems so. So I invite you to allow yourself to just sit there. Just sit there. Nothing needs to be done right now. We're reserving a little bit of time to not do anything but sit there. Sit there for the fun of it. Sit there for the pleasure of it. I do invite you to pay attention to how you feel just sitting there. Does just sitting there make you nervous? Is just sitting there a pleasure? Is just sitting there a bit of a mystery? So much is going on while you just sit there. So I invite you now to savor the pleasure of just sitting there. To just enjoy not doing anything. Oh. And now recognize that there are so many people in this world who would love to be just sitting there. Who would love to have the peace that you're feeling right now. So I invite you to think about the people that you know, who you feel would enjoy or benefit or be healed by this peace that you're now experiencing. And bring them into your heart right now. Take some time to think about the people who would benefit from this lovely peace of just sitting there. This is something you can do anytime, any earth movement that you like. So I invite you to do that often and bring these people into your heart and let them just sit there with you. So come on back. And before you put your piece of nature back in the basket that I hope will be going around again, add to it the little bit of your life, as others have done with this piece of nature that you hold, by simply giving it a little bit of your breath. Mahalo.
Mahalo. Very good, Stuart. Thank you.